Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, January 4th, 2024 Scarborough Board of Education meeting. Can we call the attendance, please?
Sure. Mrs. Gammon? Here. Ms. Castellanos?
Here.
Mr. Kelleher?
Present.
Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Ms. Leong?
Here.
Ms. Tarpinian?
Here.
Ms. Trapani Huff? Here. Mr. Shumway?
He's been excused.
And Ms. Ledger?
She's been excused. All right, thank you. Would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Agenda item 4.0 is approval of minutes from the December 21st, 2023 business meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 5.0 are adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
No adjustments.
Agenda item 6.0 is public comment. Is there anybody online?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, seeing nobody to make public comment, I will close public comment. Agenda item 7.0 is our superintendent's report.
All right, well, I'm gonna bring up a slide here, just not too much to report. I mean, we're coming off of the holidays and just wanted to extend to everyone a happy new year. And just note that in this last bullet, you know, what we're focusing on this month is starting our budget calendar with staff input and building-based meetings to really start to dig in around our budget and start building proposals as a leadership team, and starting with our buildings and staff and getting their input over the course of this month. Just some December highlights. We had our 2023 Congressional App Challenge winner, our very own Scarborough High School student, junior Matthew Fagerland, who designed a Grapher app, which is something that our kids can use to graph different mathematical equations and linear relationships, quadratic relationships, all kinds. It's pretty cool. There's actually, if you click on the link that's in there, there's a more thorough description of the app, and then also I think even like a short video of how it works. So that I thought that was that was announced, I believe, like the 13th or 14th of December, somewhere in there. So congratulations to Matt. We also held a planning meeting before break for a date in the spring to celebrate both our high school and middle school receiving national recognition as Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. So there's also a link here too that we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And our two schools were just two of 5 schools in the entire state that were selected as Unified Champion Schools. So I think that's just a wonderful recognition to our special education department, to our high school and middle school staff, and to all of our amazing students who are competing both at the middle and high school levels. So it's super exciting. And there's also a link to a short reel from our choral concert at the high school that was held December 19th. So great job to all of our singers in preparation for the holidays. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions for Jeff? All right. Agenda item 8.0 is the chair's report. I do have a few things this evening. First, welcome back, Leanne. We're very happy to have you joining us. We have a lot of work. As you know, this is entering our busy time. And so I know that we look forward to having your experience and your knowledge back with us. And thank you for volunteering to step in. It really is means a lot to all of us. So thank you. Yeah. So with Leanne joining the board, we do have some vacancies on in the committees that will now be full. or be filled. So just to go over them very quickly, Leanne will join the Long Range Planning Committee. She'll join negotiations, curriculum, and the building steering. So those will be her assignments. Jenna will become the chair of the curriculum committee. And then the vocational liaison. And then I will become the district emergency management team liaison. All right. I know Cheryl, well, thank you. I know you'll take care of getting them on the website for us and getting that updated. So thank you for that. But are there any questions about assignments or anything? All right. The second thing that I wanted to chat about is if you notice the agenda, format looks a little bit different this week. And we have this on our policy meeting agenda to discuss, but I wanted to try it and see what your thoughts are. So to give you some background as to where this change came from. I was noticing that, and this is really when the school started picking up steam and we had people attending a lot of our meetings for the first time that were used to town council meetings. Town council meetings are very different, run very differently from ours. And so what was happening is people were coming and they didn't know things like we only have one public comment opportunity. And we would have things on the agenda that we would discuss and then discuss it a second time when we were voting. And so to me, it kind of felt a little bit disjointed, and I thought it would be good if we could match the flow of the council so that people could come seamlessly between the two bodies. And so that's kind of where it started. And then we had our last meeting where we had 3 big things to talk about in one meeting. And so instead of talking about 3 big things, we talked 3 times, we talked about 3 big things 6 times. So I think what ends up happening is our meetings are actually longer than they need to be, because we talk about something, we answer questions, we get into it, and then we're like, oh, well, let's stick a pin in that until we're ready to vote. So just with all of that in mind, I asked Freyla to put it on the policy agenda for us to really create or look at our policies and potentially add to it as to what the agenda flow could look like. But in talking and in looking at town council's agenda, they really have they have it separated out into old business and new business. And so old business are the things that have been discussed at previous meetings that are coming back again for a second time. New business are the things you're seeing for the first time, and you discuss it once. So instead of having those 2 separate opportunities, it would be discussed once, voted on, and we're done with it. So we started that with Diane's help. We started it this week. So I'm curious if there's any thoughts about this format. The other thing that I wanted to talk about at policy and bring forward is potentially changing our public comment to also mirror town councils.
So that public comment is anything that's not on the agenda?
Yeah, so you would have the opportunity at the top, which is anything that's not on the agenda to comment on. And then each time we discuss a new item, we would open up public comment. So people, in other words, people would be commenting on the topic that we're discussing. Go ahead.
So when you say with before how we did it, we talked about something and then we would come back to it later. So would we combine that into, would it just be in the discussion? We'd bring it up, make a motion and then discuss?
Yes.
So we wouldn't explain anything before, we would just go right into what we were doing.
Yeah, so kind of if you think about when we have policies where we have Freyla talks to us about what the policy is, and then we
Okay,
motion.
so we'll have a little descriptor of
Yes.
this is what's coming up and then
Yes.
do we have, okay, I got you.
Yeah,
I just
but we
wanted-
have to have the motion before we can start
Right,
discussion.
But I
Yeah.
just wanted to double check on
Yeah.
what the steps were gonna be. Thank you.
And then-
So, just to be clear, also, I don't know if this was what he was just saying, we will have like per item in new business, we will have a discussion, but for old business, we would have like a public comment just ahead of that.
Right, so you would have, yes, so you would introduce the item, you would have, is there anybody here to talk about who would like to provide public comment? They
Okay.
would provide public comment, and then we would move into our discussion and vote. Yeah.
So that would be whether it's old business or new business.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I think it just makes sense. I really do. I like it a lot and I think it's the right thing. So.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, so I think the idea with policy is that when we look at it at the committee, it's trying to, and this is where Diane's been really helpful, trying to draft out what this would look like so it lives beyond us. So it's not like this can change later when we're no longer here. So we'll take a look and then we'll bring that forward. All right. A couple more items. I do have a save the date here for our board retreat. It'll be Saturday, February 10th. It will be at the AP room at the high school. From about 10 to 12, we'll have the educational piece and then lunch. And then after that, we'll have talk about our self-evaluation results and looking forward. All right. All right. We have the next slide. And then my last thing that I wanted to talk about is just a very brief high level overview. If you're interested in watching, anybody in the community or anybody here interested, the link for last night's town council workshop is there. The survey results are in. And so last night's workshop was reviewing the results and giving again a high level overview as to what was found. A couple of pieces to know when you're looking at these numbers is the workshop and the information compiled right now. So all of the charts that are in the executive summary, all of the charts that you'll see in the workshop are based on this sample, the random sample of Scarborough that went out. So that sample is supposed to be, it was representative of all of our residents across the entire town. The goal was to have 600 results. They had 608. So that meant that the sample was statistically valid. And so that is where the results are from. After the sample was sent, there was an opportunity for residents to then provide feedback and to take the survey. Those results have not been tabulated yet. So everything you see is just from the sample, just from that 608 respondents. The other piece that was interesting that we heard last night was when you're looking at the increases and decreases year over year, because this is a survey from 2 years from the last one. When it becomes something that is considered significant, as a 4% increase or decrease is considered significant. So anything above or anything below 4% is not necessarily a significant finding, maybe something to be mindful of, but not worrisome. But anything that's 4% or more is, and then there were some changes that were above that 4%. So those are the two, and there was some really I thought positive statistics right off the bat. The 77% of the people that responded with an opinion. And what that means when it says with an opinion, it means people who didn't answer don't know. People who actually gave a response that didn't include don't know. 77% said they're satisfied with the overall quality of life in Scarborough. 87% said they were satisfied or very satisfied with their feeling of safety in Scarborough. And so those are really big numbers when you're thinking about the town. So those are really good. This is where the priorities came in. Some of this is likely not a surprise. Traffic flow and ease of getting around town, maintenance of streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, communication with the public. And then the top issues that community members believe will face over the next 5 years, you can see education is number 4. So if you think about the timing of this, it's for me, it's an interesting piece because this happened right after right around the failed referendum. So it's interesting as you look through these numbers, we didn't have a facilities question in there, but I do wonder if you see some of the response to that referendum failing in some of the educational questions that came up. Next slide. So when they talked about in the executive summary, when they talked about the schooling, they did ask a question to the respondents. Do you currently have a child in the school? 29% indicated they did of that 608. So that was about 176 people. that have a child currently attending schools. So the highest levels of satisfaction from those that answered that they had children came from, you can see the 4 reasons. What was exciting for me to see was the communication between schools and home, that it actually increased from the last survey. So that was really beneficial, especially when you take that into consideration, that one of the things they were asking us to fix was communication. But yet our communication actually increased. So that's pretty significant in the big scheme of things. The qualifications and performances of teachers, administration at the school level, and then the overall education that the child is receiving. Right, next slide. And then these are the specific questions that were for the school. One of the things I know this is kind of small, and again, you can pull the report open and you can see for yourself when you're in there a little bit better. You can play around. Oh, that is one thing that was mentioned yesterday. I guess the past survey, there was an ability to go in and manipulate the numbers and pull out and play around with them. And that will be something that people will be able to do this time as well. Okay, so this one is the satisfaction with the aspects of the public school. So when you look through this, really what they're looking at is quality of communication all the way down to the food service. And so there's varying areas that they looked at. The dark blue is the very satisfied. The brighter neon blue, I guess, is a satisfied. The gray is neutral. Light pink is dissatisfied. Dark pink is very dissatisfied. What's interesting, what Diana and I were just chatting about with this, is when you look at these numbers, it says the percentage of respondents with children who attend public schools. So the people that have kids that were able to answer this question and provide feedback. So, overall, you can see that these were the respondents. It looks really good on this side. If you go to the next one, it shows the survey over survey change. So the gray, the light gray on top of the survey bar is the 2021 survey. The dark blue is the current 2023. So you can see in almost every single category, the schools did improve. There's a couple areas where there's a little bit of a digression. One is other extracurriculars and one was the quality of food service. All right, so before I move on, is there any questions for me on the survey results? Anything I've covered? All right, so we will move on to our committee reports. We'll start with Jenna, Communications.
Okay, so our last meeting was on December 14th. Counselor Seiler was there with us, and she discussed having joint discussions with representatives from the Board of Ed and Town Council with the community. So what we discussed is we were going to start off with me and Jillian, and then we're going to talk to you guys to work in a rotation schedule on who else should join in on these joint discussions with the town. So the kickoff date for this first discussion is proposed for January 25th. And the topics of discussion that we had decided on was capital projects and community values. Counselor Seiler said that her next meeting is the day before our next meeting. So she's going to report back right after their meeting, and then I'll have updates on how that goes at our next meeting. So that meeting is on January 11th at 12 p.m. And then we also discussed designation of roles. We're going to try to split up our tasks just so that we could be better about communicating information to the community. So we discussed having a social media person, a print person, and the Spotlight Award person, just so that way we can kind of keep ourselves in our own lanes and we're not kind of all over the place to get our information out. So that's for communication.
That's a great idea. Do you know the date? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not the date, the time and the location for the 25th?
We haven't discussed that yet. We just decided on the date,
Gotcha.
and Counselor Seiler needed to report to her communications committee just to make sure everyone gets the okay and thinks it's good to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Any questions for Jenna? Right. I think you're still up.
Yep.
Curriculum.
So curriculum. So our last meeting was on December 12th, 2023. We spoke with Katie and Katie Vitro, who's our curriculum director, and she provided us with an update on the main 3-year results, which she will be presenting to the full board this month. Have you guys decided on a date for that already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's our next meeting, which
Okay.
is the 18th.
Okay, perfect. So Katie had also made a video at our request, a video presentation that went out to all the families explaining how to understand the main 3-year assessments, because as you know, we haven't had any sort of assessment that has been uniform in the last few years. So understanding the data is kind of all over the place. So Katie made a very beautiful video explaining how to read this information. And then we also discussed enrollment between 8th grade and high school. At our previous discussion, Carolyn had heard rumors that there were drops in enrollments between 8th grade and high school. So we just wanted to know, is this true? And Diane was able to provide us numbers on enrollment numbers for the last few years. And the only outlier was COVID. So really it was kind of debunked. The rumor's not true. We're keeping our kids for the most part, with the exception of the COVID year. And then we also spoke about dropout prevention. Nate from Scarborough High School, the principal at Scarborough High School, he was also at our meeting. He discussed that there are teams at every building with a system that identifies risk, and these student assistant teams meet bi-monthly and include social workers, counselors, and building leaders. And they identify the students who are struggling short-term or long-term and direct them to resources that can help. And that was kind of stemmed from Carolyn's previous question, if we're dropping in numbers from the older grades. So I was wondering how do we identify the at-risk kids then? And then lastly, we spoke about adult education. I wanted to bring it up because I think people in the community forget that we also cover adults. So that's always in our budget. That's what we also considered when we're building projects in the town. So adult programming is utilized a lot in our community, and many programs focus on teaching skills useful for the workforce. And the classes are highly adaptable in our adult courses. So they just change with the needs of the community. And our next meeting is January 9th at 12 p.m.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. Any questions for Jenna?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment that I heard a lot of really good feedback about the video, that it was really helpful and that data can be a little overwhelming and anxiety provoking. So thank you very much. That was really a great addition.
Thank you, Jenna. All right, finance, Miss Carolyn.
So I'm going to pull Kate and talk to some numbers. This is my favorite thing to do. But excuse me. In December, we didn't actually meet, although we kind of pseudo met. We went to the town council workshop and listened to the financial statement presentation from Markham, the auditors of the town and the school. And so we got a clean, unmodified opinion for the school and the town combined. So that is always a wonderful thing. And I just wanted to throw up some general fund summary numbers here on the revenue side. So general fund, it excludes, I'm looking at my sheet here, the non-major special revenue funds and the non-major capital projects. So just to be clear, this is where the bulk of the activity happens, is in the general fund. So we had revenues of 62.2 million. We had expenses of 61.36, leading to excess revenues of just about $850,000. And we, Vrayla loves this part. I tried to find a boss, but we did transfer over about 800,000 over to the non-major capital projects to fund buses. And leaving us with net changes to fund balance of about 50 grand. And our ending fund balance going into the year is 3.7 million. So it's basically very close to what Kate had presented a few months back, but just wanted to put those numbers up there and let everybody know And our next meeting is going to be on the 22nd. Oh, I didn't put the time. I think we meet at 4. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Carolyn. Are there any questions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait.
I just want to say that I knew this was going to be a great meeting because as I drove in, a bus went by. It was like my motto. Thank you for recognizing that.
I think I was behind that bus. Trying to turn in here. I did promise Kate I would put in one plug and I forgot. So I just remembered. So she said, anybody who wants to find the school's financial statements, which is a great read for anybody. I can't help it. I love this stuff. So you can go to the school's website and you can find it on the BOE Finance Committee page and also on the Business Operations Financial Reports page, if anybody is interested.
Perfect. All right, are there any questions? All right, negotiations.
Well, I wrote these slides a little bit prematurely and we have some updates, which is good. So this was working on setting up a meeting, which has been set up. It's scheduled for next week. On Tuesday, we're going to meet as a team and get ready to start negotiations. So it's a preliminary meeting. It'll just be setting up logistics and some basics so that we can go into the negotiations, which is good. We need to get those underway. There's 3 big contracts ahead of us and I'm excited to get started.
Any questions? All right, you keep at it with policy.
Yes, looking for my policy slide, which has disappeared. Ah, there we go. As you can see, a policy committee continues to churn forward through policies. We are still working on the facilities naming policy. I had a great conversation with Counselor Hamel about the town council's committee who's going to be working on that, their policy committee. And they're going to discuss it at their meeting, which should have already happened, I think, this week. And then I may go to that meeting next month to sort of get some feedback. As I said to them, I'm happy to bring them material to look at and pass along the research that's been done. But the research is really focused on school board policies. And so if they're looking for a town policy, I'm happy to help with that, but I didn't want to go off on my own. I want them to give me some direction and hopefully collaborate on a policy because whatever policy we want to effectuate is going to be dependent on the town council policy. And so it's important to collaborate with them, but they were very open to that. So it was a really good conversation. I'm excited. It sounds like everybody and counselor, the counselor who was here last time also was excited about it. So we have at least 3 members of the council who have already sort of think it's a good idea. So it's, that's a positive feeling for me at this point. We're going to see some second readings coming up. We previewed them already last week, so I'm going to keep going through that. We already prepared those for first reading. So we actually did the first reading. As I said, I wrote the slide a little prematurely. The wellness policy, the truancy policy, the service animal policy, the tobacco and vaping policy. We will be looking at those coming up when we start voting on new business. Our next meeting date is Monday at 4 p.m. You're welcome to come enjoy the agenda on the right-hand side. We're going to look at cleaning up a couple of policies that need to be addressed. That's the school district commitment to learning results and the educational philosophy and mission. These are the last of the A policies, and then we're going to move on to the B suite policies, which I've listed there. We will not be getting through that list on Monday because we don't want to sleep at the school, but we're going to get underway, and that's what's coming up. So it's a preview of what we'll be working on for the next few months. It's a list on the right-hand side.
All right, any questions for Freyla? All right, DEI, so. No.
I can keep going. I wrote this. So we're continued, the DEI committee is continued. We had struggled with attendance in December, which is not unusual. People were sick and it was just a tough meeting. We're still down a couple of members, which is another issue that we're trying to address. So we'll be looking to fill the 2 more seats. Looking for the governance document to come out of this board. So hopefully maybe in the next couple of agendas, we can get onto the DEI governance document so that we can get that to them because there's some process changes that would include bringing those seats back here for a vote before seating members. And if that's what we want them to do, we should tell them that. We're continuing our deep dive into multilingual learners. And so the committee has chosen to sort of take a topic that seems to be important and to kind of really educate themselves about it. And the last meeting was really interesting because we started making recommendations to bring forward to this board, which, as you may have noted, you've never had recommendations from this committee. So they're actually, I think, beginning to constitute themselves in a way that, well, you will start seeing them, which is the goal of the committee, which is to bring information to this board about things going on in the schools and recommendations that they're making. So this would be a recommendation specifically to multilingual learners, which is an important topic because we've had a very large increase in the number of multilingual learners in our school district in the last couple of years. It's a topic that finances came up last budget cycle. Wouldn't be surprised to see it again this cycle. And so it's a topic that I think is important. So I think this committee is beginning to get traction and find its way, which is exciting.
All right, any questions or did you have something that you wanted to add? No, Jillian, no, you're good. All right, any questions? For either Jillian or Frayla? All right. We have our liaison reports. Jillian, do you want to do pre-K?
Yeah, so we met on Tuesday. Yeah, gosh, the week has been long. With Nicole Madore, I said the name right. Who is from the state, who talked to us a lot about what programs exist and what they would mean for Scarborough. We heard a lot about how every program is a little different. So, Scarborough would be figuring out a way forward if we are able to do this or not. Which, I'm sorry, to start a pre-K program or a partnership program. There's a lot to figure out still, I would say. Yeah. But I mean, it was a lot of really, really great information that Nicole was able to give us and answer some really important questions about what the programs would, how the program would work and how that is funded. And I think I understood that it was fairly similar to how kindergarten is funded, correct, per student, with a minimum of 10 hours a week. I don't, there's a lot to figure out, a lot to learn about still. I think about how to make that work for Scarborough, but do you have anything particular that I should add?
Yeah, it was nice to add, because we have a well-established preschool program run by Shooting Stars and a really effective and knowledgeable partner who has staff that also has the proper certifications, that the partnership would be really advantageous for us to start small and be able to do so with very minimal, if any, budgetary impact.
Yeah, that's what was interesting about that, is that they would retain their staff and be in charge of it. It wouldn't require a whole renegotiation for Scarborough School budget, contracts.
Right, because their staff are already trained. Right.
Yeah,
Like a contract
Correct.
service. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good first step for sure.
Very exciting. It's exciting to think that we could be, finally moving forward with this.
Definitely.
I don't know. All right, any questions for Jillian on pre-K? Do you have a ad hoc community center update? Oh, okay, tell her this one. They did pump the brakes a little bit. Good. All right. All right, if there are no further questions, agenda item 10.0 are student representative reports. I'll turn this over to Grace. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, so for the high school and the middle school, during break, the boys basketball team won a huge game against Cheverus and they beat them with a score of 59-51. And for my report, Blue Point won a reward for being safe, kind, and focused. and the reward was a building blocks party, which is like pictured on the left with the map. And Wentworth had a red carpet spirit day before break, which was lots of fun. And Pleasant Hill had a day where they dressed up as characters from If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, which is pictured on the right. Super cute. I know.
That's super cute. Oh, thank you, Grace. Any questions for Grace? All right. Agenda item 11.0 is old business. 11.1 is to act on the Building Steering Committee governance document. Jillian, do you want to lead this? Do you want me to? How do you want to? Okay, so Jillian and I met with Nick, Counselor McGee and Counselor Seither for our discussion at the last board meeting to really work through this governance document and get it to a place where we felt both bodies would be willing to, would accept it. I will say right off from the beginning, there is concern among some of the counselors that November is too soon. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not quite there, but there is a belief that it would be June is more realistic. June of 25 is when we would move forward with a referendum vote. So keeping that in mind, that's where we started the conversation. Then we went through and really looked at this. What we did use for a reference is Cape Elizabeth's document. They actually have gone through the same process as most of you or all of you know. They have a failed referendum and they created their own governance document following that failed referendum. And so a lot of this, we actually compared what we had already looked at to their document and made some changes accordingly. The second thing we discussed after the referendum vote is really how do we make sure that everybody feels like they've been brought along in the entire process? And so to do that, what we decided on was creating two separate governance documents. So you'll notice at the top, this is labeled phase 1. So this would be the first set of things that we would ask them to do. And then there would be a second document, which would be a second set of goals that we would ask them to create. So this first one, it starts at the top with what we expect of people to serve on the committee. We expect them to be a resident of Scarborough. We expect that they will submit an application by February 9th. And we expect that they will commit to the attendance requirements established. So those are the three requirements. So nothing has really changed there from when we last discussed. The leadership team would consist of 9 members. So this is mostly the same, a little bit different. The 2 town councilors, the 2 board members, both can also sub in somebody if they need to. So if someone couldn't attend, someone else could attend in their spots. A chairperson that is elected by the committee, the full committee, a vice chairman elected by the full committee, and then 3 at-large members also selected by the full committee. In addition to those 9, there will be others that would attend. It would be Jeff and Tom Hall, and or their designee. Other people that they might invite, Tom and Jeff might invite Todd, the facilities manager, or Kate, the business manager, or Norm, the finance director. So they would all, of course, be invited to attend, but wouldn't be required to attend every single meeting. The charge right now, so on phase 1, the charge would be, it reads that it will be a joint ad hoc advisory committee of the Board of Education and Town Council, assisting them in their respective responsibilities for development of a solution to current and future space deficiencies within the K-8 schools. The leadership team shall act as the leadership of the committee and implement any necessary protocols, establish meetings, subcommittees, and make appointments to accomplish the following. Organize appropriate subcommittees as necessary to evaluate the following. The townwide school support survey. So that's the survey that we voted to move forward, asking what the community will support going forward. So they will use that information to guide the final recommendation to the town council and board of education. They will conduct an analysis of assumptions and accuracies of the enrollment projections, space needs analysis, current facility deficiencies and opportunities in the business case. And then they will provide a final recommendation report on a path forward by May 1st, 2024. That report, whatever they come up with as a recommendation, will be used at a joint Board of Education Town Council workshop on May 15th. And at that point, their leadership, the committee's leadership would come and talk about their recommendation and explain the rationale behind it. From there, so that would end phase one. From there, if both bodies would then vote, that May 15th is a town council meeting. We would have one the next day, May 16th. We would both vote on both bodies would vote on the recommendation. And if both bodies pass the recommendation, that would be phase two document would come into play. And that is more in line with what you would expect in a business case, budgeting work, design work, architecture work, all of that would be part of phase two. We of course want the public's input and outreach, so we definitely wanted to include a piece about that and the way we will communicate. So that would include website, social media, email, signage, newspaper, potentially direct mail. All right. The committee will regularly update, the school board and the town council on the progress. Again, we're using this as an opportunity for checkpoints along the way to bring everybody along. So the community, both bodies, everybody can come along in the whole process. And then the attendance requirements that we mentioned, they are expected to attend the meetings. They are also expected to participate in one subcommittee. If they miss more than 3 meetings without approval, it will result in dismissal from the committee. All right, and then again, the phase two. All right, so take a pause. Well, first off, do I have a motion to act on the building steering committee, motion to approve the building steering committee document?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to start with the easier one first?
Sure.
On the attendance,
Mm-hmm.
can there be something more than just vast majority? That's pretty nebulous. And what might seem like vast to me may be completely different than what would be vast to Freyla. I'm just looking because you're right here. And having some sort of a number around it, I think would make it really clean and clear. So there is no ambiguity.
What if we just struck out that first sentence and just said, started with, they're required to participate in at least one subcommittee, and then the next sentence is if a member misses more than 3. Does that make it clear?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Just comment on that before we go back to you. I think you need to be clear about which committee meetings count. So is it the full committee meetings or subcommittee meetings or both?
It's both. Yeah, good point. It's both. That's actually what Diane brought up. Yeah, if a member misses more than 3, I'll say both, subcommittee and or. Maybe it will. And or SBEC meetings without approval. It will result in dismissal. Yeah.
Thank you. The other is with the organizational part of it. I love the fact that there's a lot of community input to this. But what would happen if the direction of the community is different than what this is in the best interest of the school? It feels as though we're giving up some of our responsibility in a way that we won't be able to get back if it goes in that direction. And is there a way to re-influence or restate a case if the majority of the folks say, no, this isn't what we're going to do? For example, not saying it would happen, but if they came to a meeting and said, we're not going to do anything. We don't need to do anything. There's nothing there. But we know that we need something to, we know we need to put money into the schools, or we need to have a new facility. Doing nothing isn't an option. How would we reconcile that if we're not in agreement?
So I think that our responsibility at that point would be at the May 6th, 15th and 16th dates. And if they truly came back after evaluation and determined nothing needed to be done, then our responsibility would be to vote accordingly on accepting their recommendation or not.
Okay.
And at that point, we would, and this is me talking, we probably would discuss it. I would assume we would all discuss it, but I think at that point you have to think about potentially reseating the committee again. If the committee comes forward with a recommendation that neither body could support, that doesn't feel like we have a path forward at all, to me.
I agree with that part of it. I think
Yeah.
it's more of if we had to reseat or start over again, that's just time that we're losing
Yeah.
in the whole process.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel like we're losing it already too, right? And so I'm hoping, I think that one of the things I truly hope anybody interested in serving in this committee comes with is an open mind, right? Open to hearing all of the details, open to hearing the data, and really looking at what is in the best interest of the town. And I think that most people that we have heard from that are interested in serving have that intention in mind, but I truly hope that that is the case.
And I, again, wasn't looking at it as
Yeah.
assuming it would go that, it was just more of what requests did we have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we were fulfilling our duty.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because we roundaboutly had that conversation, and that's why we were really intent on the due dates being in there. So that it's not just a floundering committee and it's not just out there taking all the time, right? There is still the whole, the overarching umbrella of this is that there's still a situation that we have to handle. We still have a shortage of space. We still have a lot of students that are coming. It's, I feel like I've said this a few times with the referendum, but it's not like just because it failed that the kids will go somewhere else magically, right? And so there still is really an onus on all of us to have an answer to this. So that roundaboutly, we got to the same place you did, and that's why the due dates are there.
Awesome. Thank you. That's good. I'm all set now.
You good? All right. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
So it was in the committee charge. I was just looking at that and was thinking, it basically sounded to me that we're gonna like rehash the data we already have and the
Mhm.
options we've already explored.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little hesitant about what if a new path, a new avenue opens up? And is there enough time by April 22nd to do all that hashing of the data we have and explore a potentially new avenue?
Yeah, so, two parts. So yes, the April 22nd date was also thought by the town council to be a little bit too soon.
Yeah.
So now it's the May.
Oh, that's right.
That's why we switched out to May. But
It's an extra
to your
2
second
weeks.
piece, they wouldn't really have an opportunity to start going down the path of evaluating.
Mhm.
This is just bring us a solution by May 1st.
Okay.
And at that point, the phase 2 document will be exactly what you said, which is the hashing out and,
Gotcha. Okay.
and this is why the reasoning, this is the rationale behind, the concern that November isn't going to be sufficient, because if you back out, if you remember when the town council has to approve something to go to referendum, we really pushed it pretty far and pretty hard getting to September. If you remember, Tody was like, this is like really August is when they're comfortable having that final vote. So
Yeah, and I'm just thinking too, if it does involve a land acquisition, then
Mhm.
that's a whole,
yeah, that negotiations process.
it's just gonna
yeah.
be time consuming.
Yeah, and
you
hopefully,
want.
my hope is that this time, whatever comes out of this, and it very well might be that they look at the data and come up with the same. It very well might be that they look at the data and come up with something different. But whatever it is that we see and that we're voting on, I'm hoping that the referendum, we just have 2 times and that the second time is successful. Any other questions? Did I leave anything out, Jillian?
No, I think
Anything? I'm good. All right, the only other change I'm making is, at the very top at the committee created, and this was just an editing error, it didn't come out, under number 2. It must submit, the people interested must submit an application no later than February 9th. period. And that's, so the building committee leadership team will come out because it will not have been established yet. So we will actually collect the applications. All right. All right, so, if there is no further discussion, we have a motion in a second. All in no more discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor of accepting or approving the governance document as presented with edits? And perfect, it's unanimous, thank you. All right, 11.2 is to act on the recommendation of the Building Steering Committee for committee makeup. You may keep on, Jillian? Okay. This one is when we also discussed, if you recall, the recommendation from the Building Steering Committee was what you see in the top, that anybody who is interested in applying could serve on the committee. So that's where the recommendation came from. The town council is in support of that. They did not vote on this yesterday. They are not voting until their meeting, which I believe is the 17th. Let me just verify. Yeah, the 17th. So we went back and forth about the February 9th date, and should we go ahead and move forward with an application now to give people plenty of opportunity? And so where we landed is that the Counselor Seither and Counselor McGee believe that the council is fully in support of that piece of the governance document and feels that it is okay for us to move forward with the application process. So opening it up, we can do that starting tomorrow if we so desire, and allow people the opportunity to go ahead and submit an application. It's a very simple, 3-question application. What's your name? What's your email address? And will you adhere to the attendance policy? So it's a pretty simple opportunity. So we're just looking for people to give us information. And are you a Scarborough resident? So 4 questions. Yeah. So, we will go ahead and go forward with that. We will we will act tonight. We will vote to honor the recommendation of the Building Steering Committee where we allow anybody to participate. All right, do I have a motion to approve the recommendation of the Building Steering Committee for committee makeup?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Perfect, it's unanimous, thank you. All right, agenda item 11.3 is the second reading of policy ADC, tobacco-free schools, use and possession of tobacco and electronic smoking devices, which is over to Frayla.
Sure. There were very little comments. I think we all agree that we want tobacco-free schools and we don't want vaping products on campus, and we want our staff able to remove people who are not able to refrain from use on campus. So there are no changes to this policy. It's for second reading. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a pretty self-explanatory policy. I know we aren't all here when you heard my long-winded explanation about why we don't want tobacco on campus, but unless somebody has comments, I'm not gonna reread it to you.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy ADC, tobacco-free schools, use and possession of tobacco and electronic smoking devices?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Perfect, it's unanimous, thank you. 11.4 is the second reading of policy IMGA, service animals in schools.
This is the same situation as the tobacco policy. This policy had no real comments or questions. Of course, this is for staff or either employees of the school district or students of the school district who require the use of a service animal in order to attend to the reason they're on campus. It is in conformance with state and federal laws regarding the American Disabilities Act, as well as it lays out a reasonable method to obtain permission to bring a service animal to campus, and what happens if your service animal is not able to act appropriately and professionally while they're on campus.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy IMGA, service animals in schools?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Perfect, it's unanimous, thank you. 11.5 is the second reading of policy JHB, truancy.
Truancy also didn't have a lot of comments. In this case, this is a law, the change of the policy is a response to a law change, a statutory change in truancy requiring two separate notices to a parent or guardian prior to truancy action being undertaken. So it's a legal notice change. Other than that, truancy is the same. You have, is a compulsory attendance policy, which we already approved last time. If you're not in conformance with the compulsory attendance policy, truancy is the process by which the school addresses that. It requires as much diversion as possible to avoid any legal action, but ultimately it can lead to a court action against a parent or guardian who's unable to get their child to school.
Do I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy JHB truancy?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 12.0 is new business. 12.1 is the appointment of a middle school nurse.
Okay, so for this appointment, Laurel Rothermel has been selected to fill this position due to a retirement. Ms. Rothermel received her Bachelor's of Art degree in biology from Assumption College and received her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from University of Miami. She worked for 7 years as an ICU, ED, and urgent care RN in Ithaca, New York, Mercy Hospital in Portland, and at Thornton Academy as a school nurse.
All right, wonderful. Do I have a motion to approve the appointment of the middle school nurse as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Perfect, it's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 12.2 is a donation recognition. Excuse me. I'm gonna,
All right, yeah, and I'm just going to read from the memo that's in your packet from Kate. Last week, we received a donation check in the amount of $500 from DeRigo Federal Credit Union as part of their participation in the Maine Credit Union's campaign for ending hunger. This donation is the second $500 we've received for the backpack program for DeRigo this school year, and we are most grateful for their continued support. We respectfully request the school board approve acceptance of this donation on behalf of the backpack program with many thanks.
all right, do I have a motion to approve the donation from Deergo Federal Credit Union?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, just a very big thank you. Wonderful. All right, all in favor? Perfect, it's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 13.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
You got to jump it. You got
Get me ready.
before she stops talking, you're in.
We'll leave that to Cheryl. We'll all be waiting on the minutes to see who got it. Oh, boy. Yeah. All right, all in favor? All opposed? Okay. Have a good evening.